Greetings, Mr. Frank. Are you able to hear us?
I can hear you just fine.
There you are.
There I am.
Would you mind testing your audio really quick, Mr. Frank? We could just see.
Can you hear me? Testing 1, 2, 3.
Oh, and we're not able to hear you. That's what I was kind of worried about.
Let's see. I've seen a unmute thing
Yeah,
pop
you
up.
don't look like you're muted. I wonder if the audio input is not like on your, not you didn't select maybe your computer microphone or something. Not super clear. Oh, there we go. Muted and then unmuted. Still can't hear you, unfortunately, Mr. Frank.
Do you want me to log in again?
Okay. We're working on our end, Mr. Frank, just to see if there's anything we can do to fix it.
Okay.
And I'm sure you're already looking in there, Greg, but on the microphone emblem, there's that little caret that kind of allows you to have like an expanded menu. And then that allows you to select maybe a microphone that might be different. But I'm sure you're kind of already looking in there.
I'm looking.
And Greg, would you mind testing the audio one more time?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Right, we can actually hear you on like individual computers, but not in the room. So we're just checking out one final thing. So just hang tight if you wouldn't mind. Thank you, Mr. Frank.
No problem.
Are you able to hear us, Mr. Frank?
I can hear you just fine.
Right. We're still working on our end. I think there might be some things we can do.
But you can individually hear me?
I can actually, yeah, if we somehow got like that in here, but
yeah, if you could communicate, we're picking up this audio through the Zoom meeting, but then it's not projected in the room.
right. So
He's good on this.
Greg, you're fine on your end. It's something with the room here. So we can pick up your voice on these individual computers we have, but just it's not within the room right now. So people can hear you online and it's being recorded with your audio. It's just in this physical room. We can't hear you through the loudspeakers, but just for a little bit of your information, there is only one person in the room right now other than staff, and that is a representative for the applicant from City of Redmond. So there is no one in the room to hear necessarily what we would be discussing this evening. So as long as I can hear you, which I can, I think we can probably move through this, and if it
I'll-
looks like there's
I'll leave it up to you.
our planning manager is trying one final kind of maneuver, so I'll let you know when it looks like we've exhausted all of our attempts to get the audio back on. But thanks for being patient, Greg.
No problem. At least it wasn't me this time.
And you have a copy of the script, correct?
I do.
Perfect.
It's in front of me.
Yeah, so we have rounds. Hey, thanks for picking up. So we're trying to get the hearing going. Everything's working except the Greg's audio isn't appearing in the room. So I can hear him on Zoom on my computer. And he can hear us off the mics, but then his audio is, the Zoom audio isn't projecting in. Yeah, is there an after hours pager for like Melinda or something? I seem to remember there was one, but I don't have the number handy. Okay. We know about it, yeah. Oh, okay, well, we should get some Rouse pasta sauce, very good price. Okay, well, I appreciate the help and don't worry about it anymore this evening, we'll figure it out. Thanks. So Anthony said when the last time they did this happen, they had to shut everything down and restart from scratch. So first, shut off the room audio. So nothing's projecting in the room, and Tark, you opened your microphone stuff. No microphones, nothing.
Right. And are you able to hear me now, Greg?
Yes, I can.
Right.
Are you able to hear him?
Yeah, here, let me turn that up. Would you mind testing your microphone one more time for me, Greg?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes, I can hear you.
Cool. I
All
yelled.
right.
I yelled.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. And so what I'll do is just for the applicant that's in the room, I will move the computer closer to him so that he's able to hear you adequately. But I really appreciate your flexibility with a couple of these hiccups this evening. And I think without further ado, we might begin whenever you're ready.
All righty. Good evening. We will now go on the record. The time is just a little after 6 p.m. On November 7th, 2023. And this is the hearing for Deschutes County file number 247-23-00. There's 30252-TA. My name is Greg Frank. I am a hearings officer under contract with Deschutes County to conduct hearing, and I was selected to do this particular hearing. Before we turn to the particulars of the hearing, though, I would like to turn things over to Mr. Rawlings, to describe how the electronic process for the hearing this evening works. Mr. Rawlings.
And thank you very much, Mr. Frank. I'm going to share my screen right now with a quick presentation. Good evening. Sorry, I'll wait till it pops up there. Good evening. For the record, my name is Tarek Rawlings, and I'm a senior transportation planner with the Deschutes County Community Development Department and the Road Department. The item before the hearings officer is a text amendment to Deschutes County Code 18.80.030 to update the descriptions and dimensions of the Redmond Municipal Airport's imaginary surfaces and the 55 day-night sound level noise contour boundary as outlined in the 2018 Redmond Airport Master Plan update. The proposal's text amendments also have the effect of changing the map location of the imaginary surfaces. As Mr. Frank noted, this file number is 247-23-000-252-TA. Excuse me. Today's hearing will proceed as follows. First, staff will explain the hearing format and how to testify at today's hearing, followed by a brief presentation on the application. The county has established time limits for testimony as follows. The applicant will have 30 minutes, public agencies 10 minutes, general public 3 minutes, applicant rebuttal will be 10 minutes. And again, there's a very limited number of people that have appeared to have shown up this evening. So these are just kind of maximum time limits. We do not have to fulfill all those minutes for the various parties. The testimony portion of the hearing will begin with the applicant presenting first, followed by agencies, then persons in support will testify, then those in opposition will testify, and anyone neutral to the applicant's request will testify last. Afterwards, the applicant will then be afforded an opportunity to present rebuttal testimony, and finally, staff can make closing comments. This is a hybrid public hearing with both in-person and remote participation. Before starting your testimony, please provide your first and last name as well as your mailing address. For our in-person participants, if you wish to testify, please add your name to the sign-in sheet. I will use this list to call up participants for their testimony. After your name is called, please come up to one of the tables at the front of the room before beginning your testimony. And just as quick housekeeping, we have some copies of the staff report on the side of the room and a quick sign-in sheet for that testimony over on the right side of the room. For our remote participants, if you'd like to testify, you must be logged into Zoom or have called in using the Zoom dial-in option. When Hearings Officer Frank asks if anyone attending remotely would like to testify, you will need to use the raise hand feature to notify the staff. To do this, and then it looks like we do have there's another representative of the applicant that will be participating remotely, and so it looks like that is one other element of just the testimony this evening. Excuse me, when Hearings Officer Frank asks if anyone attending remotely would like to testify, you'll need to use the raise hand feature to notify the staff. To do this, you need to press the raise hand button on your computer or smart device, or if you called in, dial *9 as shown on the screen here. In addition to oral testimony, if anyone has written testimony to submit, please hand it to me directly. If you're in person, please submit your written testimony to me after your testimony. And if you are participating remotely, you can submit your written testimony to me via email at tarek.rawlings@deschutes.org, also shown on the screen here. Hearings Officer Frank and staff are responsible for conducting an orderly hearing. Any testimony or behavior which is inappropriate will be addressed and may result in that member of the public being removed from the hearing. Are there any objections to the format of the hearing? If you are attending remotely and have an objection, please use the raise hand function. And seeing none, or is there anything online? Seeing none, I will turn the hearings back over to the Hearings Officer, Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Rawlings. As Mr. Rawlings described, we're following the normal hearing procedure in the county's code, and I will provide sufficient opportunity for everyone who wishes to participate at an appropriate time. I'd ask for your patience as we make sure we get through each of the steps as outlined by Mr. Rawlings. The application is being considered through a quasi-judicial process. I will consider only the factual evidence that is in the record, and I will then apply those facts to any relevant provisions of the county's comprehensive plan and relevant land use regulations. The standards and applicable criteria relevant to this hearing were identified in the public notice announcing this hearing. They are also set forth in the staff report. The public notice and staff report are posted on the county's website, and they are also available directly from staff upon request. It is important that you direct all your testimony to the standards and the applicable criteria. If you believe a criterion applies that was not listed, you may address the unlisted criterion. However, I urge that you also explain why the criterion must apply, and to do so with specificity so that other participants may respond, and so that I can address that issue in my decision. The failure to raise an issue with enough detail, the magic words are specific, sufficient specificity, detail to enable me or other participants to respond, precludes your ability to appeal that issue to the Land Use Board of Appeals. Also, the failure to raise a constitutional or other issue related to any proposed conditions of approval with enough detail to allow me to respond to the issue, and my decision precludes an action for damages in circuit court. As I just noted, I serve as a county hearings officer. In this matter, it is my role, my job, to be a neutral decision maker. Thus, while I have a contract with the county to serve in this role, I am obligated to remain impartial, and I do not represent the county's interests or interests of any other participant. To that end, I'll state for the record that I do not have any relationship with the applicant, and I am not aware of any connections that I may have with any other participants in this proceeding that would prevent me from remaining impartial. I have communicated with staff, primarily Mr. Rawlings, regarding scheduling and the transmission of documents, and they relate to the particulars of today's hearing, but they do not apply to any substantive decision that I might make. I received the staff report, and I received a copy of a script that outlined what I'm saying now. And other than that, I haven't had much conversation with anybody, and certainly none substantive to the issues. I do not have any ex parte contacts which I wish to disclose. It is my obligation to preside over this hearing in an efficient manner. And at this point, I'd like to kind of get an idea. I think I have an idea from Mr. Rawlings, but there appears to be at this point in time 2 applicants' representatives. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Frank. We have 1 in person and 1 online.
And are we aware of anyone else who is going to wish to testify this evening?
I am not aware, and there's no one else, remote or in person.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm going to find, unless I hear objection from the applicant or Mr. Rawlings, or I guess anyone else there, I'm going to continue to proceed as a hearings officer in this case. Does anyone object?
No objections over here, Mr. Frank.
Okay, the only thing I have left here is, and it's not on the script, and I just want to make sure, because it's something that I always like to make sure folks understand, is that theoretically at the end of the hearing, I will say the hearing is closed. When I say that, what I'm really meaning is the oral portion of the hearing is closed. If someone wishes to submit additional testimony beyond the end of the hearing tonight, they may do so if a person requests the record remain open. So if someone requests a record remain open, I will keep it open. I will talk about the logistics of that process at the end of the hearing if a person makes such a request. So just wanted you to be aware of that. At this time, I would ask the staff to present the staff report if they wish to do so. Mr. Rawlings, I'm assuming that's you.
That is, thank you very much, Mr. Frank. I'm going to share my screen again and begin a brief staff report. All right. And just beginning with some basics about the property itself, that these imaginary surfaces stem from. The location of the Redmond Municipal Airport has multiple tax lots, numerous addresses, as you've probably seen in the staff report and different notices. It is City of Redmond owned and operated, and so the underlying uses and activities are dictated by those City of Redmond zoning districts. Oops, excuse me. Then kind of stemming into the county portion of this, the location of the imaginary surfaces that stem from those sort of on the ground city-based uses for the actual Redmond Municipal Airport. These imaginary are different sort of aviation activities or aviation maneuvers. And so by the Oregon Department of Aviation's model code definition, imaginary services are defined as imaginary areas in space and on the ground that are established in relation to the airport and its runways. Imaginary areas are defined by the primary surface, runway protection zone, approach surface, horizontal surface, conical surface, and the transitional surface. The specific request with this proposal includes amendments to Deschutes County Code 18.80.030, the airport within the airport safety combining zones text. The effects of the amendments in part 1 would be to align the airport safety combining zone with the 2018 Redmond Airport Master Plans update. The updates would also provide new descriptions of the runway and primary surface locations and their dimensions. The amendments would also update the imaginary surface descriptions for the transitional surface, approach surface, horizontal surface, conical surface, and the runway protection zone. It would also update the location and dimensions of the 55 day-night sound level noise contour boundary, which surrounds the airport as well. This proposal would have an associated map amendment, which would amend the location of the airport safety combining zones boundaries, their imaginary surface within those boundaries on the county's zoning map to correspond with the requested text amendments. And those the existing and proposed mapping is shown in the applicant's burden of proof, figures 1 through 4, which is their pages 17 through 25 of the applicant's application materials. And those are very illustrative of sort of the before and after dimensions and locations of these imaginary surfaces. In terms of public process and comments, we've received one neutral public comment from Central Oregon Irrigation District, essentially just enumerating whether they had any facilities that interfaced with the airport's properties, which it appeared they did not, or in any significant way did not. There was one neutral agency comment from the Deschutes County Building Safety Division, which was not substantive. And then there was one supportive agency comment that was received after the drafting of the staff report from Oregon Department of Aviation, just simply expressing support for this proposal. This is also just as kind of more information related to process. This is processed as a quasi-judicial text amendment, which requires final action by the Board of County Commissioners as a second subsequent hearing process. So all the record materials are published at the following project-specific website, which is included in the notices and referenced in the staff report and shown on this project website itself. And with that, I'm available for any questions that the hearings officer may have. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Mr. Rawlings. I have no questions at this time. This would be the time and the place for the applicant or applicant's representative to present any testimony they wish to present.
Sure, and I'm going to move the computer over to our applicant here so he can hear and see you, and you can and vice versa.
Yes, hello. My name is Fred Lawlisher. I'm the Redmond Municipal Airport's engineering and construction manager. Just want to thank everybody for all their hard efforts in putting this together and getting it moving towards a final conclusion. Our master plan efforts, just a quick summary of what that involves. We try very hard to keep our airport improved and growing as fast as the community does. And so we contracted to do this master plan study back in 2018. It's a 20-year long-term plan. And it does include some pretty exciting things in the future. And we certainly want to work with the county to get this on record, so to speak, as far as some of those improvements and protect the airspace, the Part 77 surfaces, and the noise contours around the area. So just a huge thank you to everybody involved. And I think that's all I have to say.
Certainly,
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Frank. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, with the gentleman who was speaking, could you give me the first and last name by spelling?
Oh, sure. First name is Fred, F-R-E-D. Last
Oh, I
name,
should have known that.
no, sorry. Last name is a little tougher, Lawlisher, and it's spelled L-E-L-A-C-H-E-U-R. And the second L is capitalized, just to keep a challenge to it.
Okay, then I'm going to go back and fix that.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right, the next gentleman.
All right, Mr. Frank, we're gonna promote Mike Dane. And here he is, and another representative for the applicant.
Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, sir.
Okay, yeah, I have nothing to add to Fred's comments. I'm here to support and answer questions as necessary.
Okay, and the spelling is Mike just as easy, but Dane is D-A-N-E.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all I care about. I appreciate your testimony.
Sir.
Anyone else?
There appears to be no other participants in tonight's public hearing.
All right, so I'm not going to run through the list of neutral and opposed and all that kind of stuff. Anything further, Mr. Rawlings?
I had one very slight detailed comment just about there's on the actual proposed text amendments, which is attachment, the main attachment to the staff report. This would be on page 32 of the entire agenda packet for tonight. There was one message from the applicant that clarified just of clerical language piece. I don't know if you were able to navigate to that page, Mr. Frank, but essentially there's a mistakenly or not, or however, there's an underlined word and that appeared to not be an intended added text amendment piece. And so I can potentially highlight that. I don't know if anyone else is going to request any kind of open record period, but that's really just more of a clerical edit that the applicant offered very recently. I assume it would get cleared up before the board's process either way, but I just wanted to note that there was an extremely minute comment about some of the language that was included in the proposed text amendments attachment to the staff report.
What's your pleasure?
I think just in its clerical nature, I'm happy to, I don't feel comfortable being the sole requester for an open record period. And I think that I can clarify this clerical piece at the board level for that public hearing, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Appreciate it, and you know, I'm willing to see on the screen. I'm always afraid if I go away from Zoom on my screen, and I guess I could do it on my second computer here, but
no need. I think that was
if you'd like me to, I can go to the agenda packet.
I don't think it's necessary. I just wanted to give you kind of all the details I've received so far as the staff planner for this file.
I appreciate it. Anything else, sir?
Nothing for me. Thank you, Mr. Frank.
All right. With that, no one's requested the record to remain open, so that when I say the hearing is closed tonight, that means the hearing is closed both for oral testimony and additional written testimony. I do have just sort of a logistical question that kind of arose in the last land use decision that I did for Deschutes County, is that in that particular case, 98% of the staff report was used word for word, and I wasn't quite sure formatting wise. Should I just say I agree with it all except for, and just leave it at that? And so I have a really short decision. Or what I did in that particular case was I listed each section. I said in each approval criteria, I indicated what the staff said and said, I agree. There was only 2 or 3 issues beyond that I did. So it's an interesting for me sort of logistical issue is I can do that whole thing again. Because this is
I appreciate you bringing that up, and the planning manager Will Groves has entered the scene just to provide a little bit of feedback.
Hello,
Okay.
Will Groves, your planning manager. So I will, let's assume for the time being that that approach that you described, which would be to adopt the findings proposed by staff with any sort of corrections or additions in a relatively short decision will be acceptable. We'll follow up with legal tomorrow and have them communicate to you if they if our Deschutes County Legal Counsel has a preference about kind of a longer form decision. But unless you hear otherwise, assume that the short form decision is acceptable.
That's, it's interesting. And that's the reason I brought it up was, number one, the last case I did, I felt like I was just wasting a really lot of paper to simply say staff, what I agreed with staff. And I could have done it even shorter, but I was a little nervous not having been in that position before. Most cases in Deschutes County don't allow me to have that luxury. Just by way of reference, and since we're on the hearing and it's going to end really shortly anyway, Mr. Groves probably is aware, and maybe even Mr. Rawlings, that I was with the city of Portland for about 20 years and was their primary land use hearings officer for that entire period. We adopted a process that basically was called the uncontested land use hearing process. And literally it was about a 3-page document, because usually most of the pages were included, like your first page with who's doing what to who. So it was a really short document, and then we simply attached the staff report. So it simply said, this is an uncontested case, adopting staff report as submitted, and called it a day. It was a good process. Didn't get used very often, but it was a good process. So anyway, yeah, I'd appreciate just counsel from county council that if there's a shorter way to do this and save the applicant time and expense for the hearings officer, it's fine with me, and it's just more efficient. So let me know what you'd like.
Can do. Thank you for asking.
Thanks very
Yes.
much. All right.
All
Yeah.
right.
And make sure to follow up with you. And I don't think there's really nothing else, I don't think, in this room that for testimony or other materials, but unless you have other questions, I'd be happy to answer anything.
No, with that, then I'm going to close the public hearing. I appreciate everyone's work on this case. It sounds like it's going to go through just fine and dandy. So we'll see what our decision is going to be. I look forward to any input that county council may have, just on the format, not the decision, but the format of the decision might look like. So thank you. We'll close the hearing. Thank you all for coming. Good night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frank.